to jump into today's time together, what I want to do really quick is ask you, let's do a little word association here. And what we're going to be doing is I want you to just type in one word that comes to mind when you hear the word conflict. So when I say the word conflict, what is one word that comes to mind as far as conflict goes? So I see dread, drama, awesome, manageable, very nice, all right. Misunderstanding, excellent. So you can just keep typing those in and we'll see that grow in there. Um, so I'm just seeing stress, miscommunication, a couple ugs with the hands to the face, right? You know, you're just holding your face. Oh no, here it comes. Disagreement, anxiety. So drama and stress, anxiety seem to be winning out. So yeah, absolutely. Conflict definitely easily comes with that negative connotation with it. Yet for teams, what we're going to look at is it can be a healthy thing if worked through in the right way. It can make or break our team. It can make us an A team, or our team can fall apart. So those are some of the words you guys would associate with conflict. And now let's have a little bit more fun real quick. And let's do that for the word resolution really quick. Okay, so again, I'm going to have you type your word in, and we're going to see what you guys think as far as resolution goes. All right, so you can type that in up here in the box for word cloud, and it's just going to generate a cool little picture of what you guys think as far as what resolution means to you. So I'm seeing sorry, opportunity, peace, thanks, success, middle ground. All right, some great answers from everyone there. Compromise, seeing some below as well in our comments and questions. Let's see, it says teamwork, compromise. So big response is relief on that one. So when something's resolved, you guys feel a sense of relief. Yeah, absolutely. I think when we move through resolution, and we'll talk about this more today, what happens and tends to happen is we can move forward as a team if we really work through conflict in a healthy way. So let's go ahead and jump into our presentation here. And what we're going to do first here is define conflict and resolution. So we did some word association, and now let's take a look at what conflict actually is defined as. So for today's purposes, conflict is a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one. So it's not just a quick disagreement or something that just kind of flares up and then goes away. Conflict is typically that type of disagreement where it may extend over a period of time. It may go on for a little bit longer. I love the little example, by the way, it uses there, the eternal conflict between the sexes, right? And that's really only because men will never understand women. Just saying, I'm a man myself, and I probably will never understand my wife completely, but it is a good thing that we're different, right? But out of those differences, many times conflict can come. So conflict is a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one. So what is resolution? Let's define that really quick as well together here. So resolution is a firm decision to do or not to do something. So when it comes to resolving a conflict, we've got to come to a place where we have a firm decision to either carry forward in a certain way or to discontinue doing a certain something that may be hindering our team. And so we want to make sure that we fully understand what conflict is and what resolution is as we deal with it within our team setting, because it's going to be present on our teams. So love this quote by Thomas Iskar. Thomas Iskar is the author of the 10-Minute Team, 10 Steps to Building High-Performing Teams. And this statement just could not be truer, right? It says, conflict can destroy a team which hasn't spent time learning to deal with it. See, here's the thing. Conflict that's hidden or ignored will only destroy a team. So as a leader, what we've got to do in our role is to be able to recognize the difference between healthy and destructive conflict. So So how do we do that? We've got to be able to recognize the difference between healthy and destructive conflict. So real quick, let's go ahead and get some examples from you guys. So just some more participation here from you. A couple questions for you, and we'll just move through these real quick. So the first one's, what's some examples that you guys might have for healthy conflict? What would be some examples of healthy conflict? Next to that, you can see it says, what are some examples of negative conflict? So you can go ahead and type in your answers there as well. And then the last one is, what causes conflict? What do you guys think causes conflict? So as you're typing, I'm going to go ahead and jump back up to the first question there. It says, what are some examples of healthy conflict? So feel free to keep moving through, typing in your answers. Some healthy conflict example, talking things out instead of holding things in. That's great. Sarah, let's see, discussion on workflows, being able to communicate, listening to others' point of view. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the things you guys are mentioning are parts of healthy conflict, how to work through it and resolve it in the right manner, right? Keeping it professional, listening to others, controlling tempers. Those are absolutely important things when dealing with conflict in a healthy way. So what are some examples of negative conflict that you guys put out there for me? Passive aggressive, Carrie, absolutely, right? I'm gonna bring the hammer one moment, and then the next I'm just gonna look past it. Maybe undermining, right? Where someone undermines someone else. Yelling, never a good idea when there's a fist fight, Sarah. Obviously, that's not a good thing. When conflict within your team gets to that place, right? Although I think sometimes that might be a good way to resolve it, right? Just build a cage in the middle of your building, just have UFC show up and throw down, right? No, probably not. Let's see. We've got sarcasm. Absolutely, we're going to talk a lot about some of these things that can really undermine how we resolve conflict on our teams. So what are some causes to conflict? Which you guys are answering here: poor communication, not listening to others, absolutely, not enough reliable information. Yep, bad communication. So a lot of you are mentioning communication within the answer there for what causes conflict, jealousy, lack of ownership. Absolutely, some great answers there, guys, from you. Appreciate the participation there. So let's go ahead and kind of see what the leader's role is in all. So we're going to jump back in here. And so as we think through conflict resolution, what is a leader's role? I mean, we really need to understand what our role is as a leader in the process of resolving conflict. Is it to be that dictator to step in and make sure that a resolution happens no matter what, and give the solution all the time? No. Is it to just avoid it, or stay away from it? No. So there's some things that we need to do as a leader, and our role within conflict resolution. And what we have to do, and this was mentioned, I believe, a couple weeks ago. Kim Bussey, our key relationship manager, mentioned this, that we can't stick our head in the sand, right? We can't just avoid it, ignore it, or even draw a line in the sand. But rather, what we have to do first and foremost as a leader is recognize the warning signs of conflict. Danger, danger, red lights are flashing, what's going on? So we've got to look for those warning signs of conflict. And when we recognize those, then we have to understand the source of the conflict and who's involved in the situation. Is it the whole team? Is it just a few individuals? Or is it really just one individual that we really need to deal with? So we've got to be able to, as a leader, recognize the warning signs. We've got to understand who's involved and the source of that conflict. And then once we're able to do that, we can work towards facilitating a resolution and resolve that conflict. And here's the thing, it may be uncomfortable, but it's so necessary, because again, an amazing team is one in which can walk through conflict resolution and come out on the other side stronger. I've heard it said this way to me before, and I love this, but the greatest challenge in being a leader or manager is not the work, but the people. And it's so true, where many of our issues that we face as leaders, as managers, it comes from dealing with people, the differences in personalities, all sorts of factors that play into it. But our greatest challenge is not the work, it's the people. So let's go ahead and take a look at what causes conflict then. So what does cause conflict? You guys gave some great answers in the quick poll discussion that we had. And here's the thing. Let's look at two things that really cause conflict. Before you can begin to resolve conflict, you have to first identify the root cause of it. So one of the major components that causes conflict is communication, whether it's poor, whether it's lacking, or maybe it's different styles, right? Everyone communicates in a different way. Maybe someone's more people oriented, maybe someone's more task focused. So they don't see you standing in front of them, they see that trash that needs to be taken out in their office and they're thinking about that instead of listening. Maybe they're that people person that just wants to chat till your face melts off. Whatever it might be, there's different styles. But here's the thing I know, if your team isn't communicating, it's not resolving anything. So recognizing that one of the causes of conflict is communication is key. Another thing to recognize and know that causes conflict within our teams is emotions, right? Emotions play significantly into our team on a daily basis. It could be all sorts of things, environmental factors. I had bad pizza, I'm not feeling well. It could be anything, but emotions play into it. And when emotions are strong, and it's that point of, it's all about me, then what tends to happen is that conflict rises and resolution falls. You see, and here's the thing. Many times what happens is people may draw a line in the sand that they later regret when they have these strong emotions attached to that issue at hand. And what we have to be mindful of is these two things that really cause conflict. Thinking through communication and how it can cause conflict. I think about the first job that I had. Worked in a restaurant in high school. So for a minute, if you would just think about your first job for a moment and when you experienced conflict maybe for the first time at that job. But I can remember I was working at a restaurant and I always watched how conflict would play out between the cooks and the waitresses or the waiters. There was such a lack of communication that then finger pointing would happen. The waitresses would go, "Oh, well, they didn't put my ticket out first, or that, or the other," and then the cooks would always complain about, and they would never go to one another and resolve the issue. And so that lack of communication caused some issues. With emotions. Another an example that I've seen play out just was recently working with a volunteer team. Leader kind of drew a line in the sand because he allowed his emotions to just get out of hand and kind of angry. And so he drew this line in the sand, and he later regretted it because he ended up pushing a team member off the team. And when you're working with a volunteer team, that's difficult. Now, in a work setting environment with paid employees, that's difficult as well because it plays out in a way where people, may want to leave your organization if you do that as a leader, draw that line in the sand because your emotions are just too strong. So, in thinking through what causes conflict, I want to go to just a quick true or false question for you here. And so go ahead and answer those. The first one there, it just says true or false. There has to be a winner or loser when conflict resolution occurs. So go ahead and answer that for me there. And then the other one is just it says true or false. It's okay to agree to disagree. And so I'm seeing with the there has to be a winner or loser when conflict resolution occurs. I'm seeing all of you or those of you that have responded saying that that's false. Uh, and absolutely, because when we think about conflict and if we think during conflict resolution that there has to be a winner and a loser, that attitude will automatically change the mentality of working together to competition, right? It'll get us to a place where we think that someone has to win and someone has to lose, and it'll turn into competition, and we'll lose sight of the goal as a team. we'll miss out on that mission and vision as a company. So we have to be careful of that. That it really needs to end up playing out as a win-win. And although at times someone may have to compromise, it still needs to be done in a way where we all win, right? And then the other question we mentioned there, it says true or false, it's okay to agree to a disagree. Everybody said true. And you know what? It is okay to agree to disagree, but what we don't want to do is fall in the trap where we allow someone to just kind of live in that, because what happens is they may just let that conflict just sit on them. Okay, well, it's okay for me to agree to disagree with you, um, but then there's no resolution, and I don't buy into that resolution. What can tend to happen is that conflict never really goes away. It's just dormant, and comes back out at a later time. And so we have to be mindful of that too when we walk forward with that mentality of it's okay to agree to disagree. As we look through the causes of conflict, and what we want to do is really now just kind of take a look at the warning signs. Remember, I mentioned that as a leader, our role is to recognize those warning signs. Where's that danger ahead? Where's it lying at for us? And so what I want to do is just show you some of those warning signs and walk through those with you really quick here. And the thing is, a lot of these, many of us have probably seen before, or even living with some of them right now in our work environment. And what we have to be mindful of as a leader is when we recognize these things, there's either conflict present or conflicts on the way. And we have to step in at that point and figure out what to do and take next steps. So, some warning signs might be sudden avoidance. Team members, maybe they begin to avoid each other. Ding, ding, ding. There's a warning sign, right? We got to watch out for that when team members avoid one another. They were talking a lot, and then you walk into the break room or the lunch area or wherever you might have set up for that, and there's that individual sitting all by themselves, and everyone else is at a different table. There's your sign, right? Avoidance happening there. Maybe it's a change in communication style, right? Maybe some of the team members are going, maybe they're very talkative with one another, and now all they do is communicate through written format. Written communication instead of verbal. They changed that communication style. That might be a sign of conflict, and you might need to step in that moment. Maybe it's communication shuts down. So someone just completely shuts down, doesn't talk to another individual. Maybe how it shuts down is they begin to talk through other people. So Bob sends Sally to talk to Susie instead of just going straight to her. Maybe there's sarcasm in that change of communication style. Someone mentioned that earlier. We're walking through some of those questions and examples of negative conflict, or how to, when we walk through conflict in a negative way. Sarcasm absolutely is a sign. Withdrawal, right? Maybe someone withdraws, and you know what? In the work environment, they're not necessarily, they're still have to be there. They still have to show up for work. But what we mean by withdrawal there is that maybe they withdraw from team meetings. So you're in that meeting environment, and that person used to be someone who would bring ideas or thoughts or things like that. And now they're in a place where they've just kind of shut down and withdrawn from that team meeting. They listen, maybe they make that eye contact still, but they don't bring their feedback or respond. And so that could be a sign of conflict as well. Maybe it's behavioral changes, right? Maybe you see someone that's bullying someone else, or several people that are just really stressed out. Could be a sign of conflict. Maybe it's uncomfortable silences. I love this one, by the way, because it's a huge sign of conflict on a team, right? When someone walks in the room and all goes silent, and it's completely awkward, and there's that elephant that just walked in the room behind them, right? It's that tension that immediately comes with that person, and things get silent. Definitely a sign of conflict on your team. Or it's unexpected outbursts, right? It might even get to the point, like someone answered in a funny way earlier, a fist fight, Probably not happening on many of our teams. If that's the case, then yeah, definitely need to be here today through this conflict resolution webinar. But with unexpected outbursts, it could be, maybe seeing more anger, frustration in team members coming out in body language, things like that. So you want to make sure as a leader, your part of your role in the conflict resolution process is seeing those warning signs, recognizing them, and walking through them and making sure you're helping your team in that way. So when you recognize them and you've gotten to that place where you get it, right? You understand the source. So you've seen those signs. You've come to the place where you understand the source of the conflict, and you're beginning to try to take next steps in resolving it and setting up the right environment and meeting, whatever it might be that you're doing. There's a couple things that you want to do, and some tips for you here is, now I get it, that light bulbs went off for me as a leader. I want to make sure that I empathize with all sides. I don't want to get to a place where I choose sides. If I walk into a planned or unplanned meeting or moment where that conflict is trying to be worked through and I choose a side, that is easily going to support the win-lose mentality. So we've got to make sure that I'm showing empathy, that I'm empathizing, walk in each other's shoes, help your team members to do that as well. Another thing you want to do is acceptable behaviors, right? What are those acceptable behaviors? And we're going to talk about this in just a few minutes, but what are those acceptable behaviors for people during these times as a team? Let's keep it professional, right? We don't want any extremes showing up in those moments. Yes, emotions may become a part of it, but how do we keep those in check, and how can we help our team keep those in check so that the behaviors are acceptable during those times when we're working through conflict? Know when to take a break, right? When you're meeting with your team and you planned a meeting and it's that moment where it's a come to resolution time. It's got to happen. We've got to work through this. This conflict is affecting our productivity, whatever it might be. We get in that moment. Maybe it's not as productive as we thought it would be, and it's just not going anywhere. Take a break. Know when to take a break. Sometimes a breather is needed. So step back and take that moment. Maybe it sounds like this. You're in that meeting. It's just getting maybe out of hand or just not going anywhere. No one's really coming to that point of resolution. End it. Say, here's the deal. Let's bench this for a moment. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., we're going to come back together. Let's give it a night. We're going to come back together tomorrow at 9 a.m. We're going to spend another 20 or 30 minutes meeting together to work through this. Here's the question I want you to think through before we meet again tomorrow. And that'll also allow them to maybe think through that question, remind them to think through the other person's point of view. So always know when to take a break. And then how you start is how it's going to go. Perception is everything. So if you walk into that meeting and you choose a side, you're setting up for that win-lose moment. If you walk in and you set some ground rules, maybe you celebrate successes, whatever it might be, that's going to help you really push forward in a positive, healthy way through that conflict resolution. So we want to make sure that we're walking through that. And here's the thing to remember too. Sometimes as a leader, what we can do, or for some of us, what we tend to do, is we demand that resolution happens. And when we do that, it's only going to do one of two things. It's going to mask the conflict. People really aren't going to work through it. They say they will, but they don't. And then it just kind of sits behind the scenes and blows up in the end. Or people will agree with you because you're the leader. Oh, well, he's the leader. I agree. I got to follow. And maybe those more assertive people on the team are those that just kind of, mask the conflict. So what we don't want to do when we walk into these moments with our team is demand a resolution. We want to make sure that we're helping them let that light bulb go off for themselves. So, now that we've gotten it, now that we recognize the causes of conflict, and we see those warning signs, and maybe we've spotted some of those warning signs on our team, and now we are walking into those moments, and this is that moment where we're meeting as a team to work through that particular issue. We want to make sure that we're taking the right next steps in facilitating that conflict resolution. So what we want to do is talk about now just kind of how to facilitate conflict resolution within your team. And the thing with facilitating it is knowing where to start, right? We want to know where to start with our team. And I think one of the greatest places to start during conflict resolution moments is to celebrate the strengths. Let's all be honest. When we're looking at conflict, I made the comment at the beginning when we started. All of us, we woke up, today thinking, all right, I'm gonna just enjoy my conflict resolution moments today, whether they're small or big. Woohoo, right? Wrong. Many times what happens when we think of conflict resolution is it brings about this negativity with it. It's always an issue or frustration. It might be something like that, and it brings about that negativity. What we want to do is point people back to the common goal, right? We want to make sure that as a leader, as a manager, we're keeping that vision, that mission in front of our team. Keep the common goal number one. Don't lose sight of that, because if you do, then what can happen is we all take these side roads, these detours, and end up in all sorts of different places. And if we're a team and we're growing as a team, we want to make sure we're ending up in the same place together. So a great thing to do when you walk into those moments, celebrate the team's success, right? Um, recognize the individual contributions of the team members. For a moment, take time to recognize what they've done as a part of the situation that has a positive side to it, so that you bring down that defensive nature that also typically comes with conflict resolution. Many times we have our gloves up when we're walking into those moments trying to deal with a situation or an issue, and really helping people bring those gloves down. Just celebrate those strengths, right? And we want to make sure that remember those successes and stay the course with the team. And once we do that, we want to, as a leader, also help our team members recognize behavioral differences. I don't know about you, but I know everyone on my team here is very different, and we have different personalities, different behavioral preferences, and it's huge. It's huge as a leader, as a manager, making sure that we not only, number one, know the behavioral differences of our team members, but also help them recognize that within each other as well. Recognizing these differences, it makes a strong and amazing team. So what we do and what we need to do as leaders and managers is fully understand how each person contributes and help them recognize the differences and contributions within each other, because it really will help facilitate resolution. And some of those differences, in fact, at Omnia here, what we do with our behavioral assessments is we help you find those differences with our behavioral assessments. We look at these 4 components you see there on your screen. One of them being assertiveness. Everyone has a different level of assertiveness. Are you a more assertive person, take charge, a go-getter, or are you that individual that's more supportive and team oriented? And what can happen in conflict resolution is, if I don't recognize that, I may step on toes or not see it through their eyes. So it's very important to recognize that. Maybe it's communication style, right? Some people are wired to be more task focused. Some people are more wired to be relational or people oriented. So you got to know and recognize that as well. How about pace and adaptability, right? Huge difference there. Some people, they walk on the wild side, right? They can chew gum and walk at the same time. Others, they may be that person that's very methodical, that's patient, that likes to follow through with one task at a time. Conflict can happen when you have 2 people working on a project where one is a multitasker, go, 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 I want to be done with it yesterday, And then at the same time, you have that individual that's, oh, wait, pause, hold on, I have to finish this task first. And so conflict can come through behavioral differences as well. And then that need for structure too, right? Many of us, we might need a higher level or need for structure. We want to follow the policies, the procedures. And then maybe you might be on the flip side of that, where as a leader, maybe you lead with that 40,000, you're flying at 40,000 feet kind of picture. You see the big picture. You're not mired down in the details. So there's some differences there that we have to recognize. But then we also, in those moments where we're meeting with our team and working through conflict, help them recognize too. Because when we do, we'll be able to communicate better as a team. And remember, one of the biggest causes of conflict on a team is communication, breakdown in communication. So we want to make sure that we're working through that and know those behavioral differences. So real quick, let's jump to another question here for you. And so I want to hear from you. What are some acceptable behaviors? What are some acceptable behaviors in the conflict resolution process? What are some things that should be a part of the conflict resolution process? So yeah, great. Honesty, absolutely. When we see honesty within the team, setting up that safe environment for our team to communicate through that conflict. When there's honesty, we won't hold back and the conflict won't be masked or come back up later, right? Respect, absolutely. When we respect each other, patience, an open mind, again, that goes back to seeing it, seeing each other's side, right? We're different people. We got to see each other's side. Allowing other person equal time to speak. That's great. These are great responses, guys. Embracing the face we're different. Keeping a level head. Absolutely. So, right next to that is a true or false question. Go ahead and answer that for me as well. It says sometimes what is heard is different than what the speaker meant. So sometimes what is heard is different than what the speaker meant, and everyone says 100%. 100%. Absolutely. How many of you have ever had that happen? You can raise a hand real quick if you want. The guy with his hand raised at the top of the screen, go ahead and raise a hand if that's ever happened to you before, where you've said something and then someone heard something completely different. I'm seeing tons of hands go up. Yes, absolutely, right? That happens often, doesn't it? And so we have to be careful as well, making sure when we're walking through conflict resolution that everyone has enough time to fully understand what is being said, whether we're the one saying it or their peer is the one saying it. So we've got to make sure that we're walking through that. And there's definitely some differences that can be heard when we speak things. So let's take a look at those acceptable behaviors. As a leader, we want to make sure that we're setting up those acceptable behaviors and defining them for our team. As a leader, we've got to set the expectation that conflict is healthy if resolved correctly, right? And so it's our role to define the acceptable behaviors needed and to make sure that everyone complies with them. So a huge part of our role is in those moments making sure that we've defined the acceptable behaviors for our team. Some of those you guys have already, those great responses you had, already mentioned some of these, right? Be calm, right? There's no reason to get defensive. If we're all working together towards a common goal, if we've already reminded them of that common goal, that mission, that vision, whatever it might be, then it's easier to stay calm because that's where we're going to end up. I've got to put aside my personal feelings, my emotions, remember, because emotions can get in the way as well. I want to make sure people are respectful, right? We want to respect one another. This doesn't have to get ugly as many times it can, and so we want to be careful and mindful of that, right? To find another acceptable behavior, be open and be honest. That was one of the first answers you guys mentioned was honesty, right? Setting that safe environment up for our team so that when we walk through those moments, everyone can be open and honest. And that really grows when people trust one another. If the trust is broken, you may have some more issues to face and fix first before you can really see that open and honest environment. And then another thing you want to do is agree to disagree and then work to resolve or settle the issue, right? We talked about that a little bit already, but the fact that it's okay to agree to disagree, but that we want to work still to resolve or settle that issue. We don't want to just agree to disagree and then walk away, because if we do that, it's it's not going to end well. What are some unacceptable behaviors, right? No name calling. Never a good idea, right? Never a good idea. No clamming up. Don't allow anyone to check out. Think of yourself as a referee. If you see someone checking out, you know, let it pause or pause it and allow people that are that person the chance to speak. Um, no assumptions. Don't walk in with assumptions. Use facts about the situation. Don't assume the worst about others, which many times happens. Um, no over talking. Bring some rules, some order to those meetings where when someone's talking, another individual is not over talking them. That's just again feed into that win lose or really bring in emotions that we don't want to see as a part of the situation. No tabling the topic without returning to it. So if you do have to table it, you do need to take a break, whatever it might be. Make sure that you set up a time of specific time to come back to it, because if you don't, it'll be forgotten, or team members will feel like if it was important to them and it was an issue they're facing that's very important to them, they may feel like they're not as valuable to you or to the team. So we want to make sure that we return to it in a timely manner and resolve it, right? So we've got to define those acceptable behaviors for our team. And then what we want to do is make sure that we're setting up the rules of engagement. So this is where we want to help the team. I love to picture. I don't know if any of you've ever done it before, but you can rent them the sumo suits, right? Just a fun, safe way to wrestle and have fun with friends or events, or you see them at events sometimes or whatever. I was at a hockey game and they had them out front. People could put the sumo suit on and smash into each other, right? But it was safe. No one got hurt. Nothing was broken. But it was an absolute blast. We need to set up rules of engagement, allow our team to set up those rules of engagement so that things can be worked through in a healthy way, and that conflict can be resolved. And we want that safe environment. So what we want to do with the rules of engagement is we'll allow the team to create those. We want to work through that with them, have them put their input into that to decide the rules of engagement. When we do that, they're going to own it more. Maybe when you do that with your team, summarize it, maybe reword it if needed, and really hone in on those rules of engagement. Great idea with this as well is to post it where the team has maybe the most conversations, so that they're front and forward for them. So in those moments of conflict when they arise, maybe you're not even having to be a referee as much as you usually are, because those rules of engagement are up and in front of them. So allow them to be a part of that. Another thing that the rules of engagement will do for your team is accountability. It'll help each one of you hold each other accountable. So you as a leader have more room to hold your team accountable, but also your team members can go to one another and keep each other in check in a healthy way, because everyone came up with those rules of engagement together. And then it also creates that flexibility for you and for them. Um, you know, One thing that it does is free you up, right? If you have those rules of engagement, it frees you up to have to be the referee less. Because here's the thing, we can get to a place if we feel like we always have to be the referee with every moment of conflict, where we're overwhelmed or we're always putting out fires. And we don't want to be there as a leader or manager. We want to get to a place where many times that conflict resolution is happening within our team, one to one. And then if if it can't happen there and you see those warning signs, then you bring it to that next level where it's maybe a team meeting or something like that. But it creates that flexibility for you. Now, on the flip side, thinking through flexibility with rules of engagement, you want to make sure you remind your team members too that there needs to be a little flexibility with them, that there's not that person on your team that hammers people with those rules of engagement. You may have that person on your team that's a rule follower and just always gonna, someone says something and they point to the sign because you've now posted it. They point to the sign. Hey, look! Oh, nope! Look at number one, read it again for me. You want to make sure that that they understand and know too that there's got to be a little bit of flexibility um, in how you work through those rules of engagement. And then it also really helps set up just that team agreement, right? If we're really trying to push them towards the common goal and push forward with the mission and vision of our team, when we set up rules of engagement as a team, it really brings even more of that agreement as a team. So we want to really look at that and make sure that we're working through that together. Um, so in keeping that in mind and thinking through how we want to define the acceptable behaviors for our team and help our team set up those rules of engagement, got a quick question for you. And just some poll questions for you. Who has to agree to resolve conflict? Does it have to be just the manager? Does it have to be the peer? Or does it have to be everyone? And then true or false, when conflict is resolved, everyone is happy. Uh, so true or false on that one. And so I'm seeing for the first one, just about everyone, 100% saying that everyone has to agree to resolve conflict. Absolutely, right? We as a team have to make sure that we're working through it and that everyone uh, sees that we need to resolve conflict. So that's a big part of our role as a leader too, isn't it? Making sure that we lay that out for our team, making sure that they understand that it's important that there's going to be conflict, but it can be healthy for our team and make us better. Um, and then when conflict is resolved, everyone is happy. So I only have a few people that said true to that, and quite a few of you said false. So here's the thing. When conflict is resolved in a healthy way, typically everyone, I wouldn't use the word happy, but definitely see that they're going to be able to carry forward. Um, but absolutely, Mary, I see your point there that everyone doesn't have to be happy, but everyone has to be on board, and that's really the point behind it, isn't it? You don't have to be happy about the decision I just had to make as a leader, but I want to make sure that you're still on board, that you still see that goal ahead of us, and that we're driving forward for it. If uh, if we aren't in that place, then we're definitely not working through conflict in a healthy way. So no, is everyone going to be happy? Probably not, right? But we may have that team member that isn't happy and isn't agreeing upon or on board moving forward. And that's that person that might be right for the position, but just on the wrong bus or in the wrong place. And so we're going to talk more through some of that in just a moment. But so those are some things to think through when it comes to conflict resolution. And the thing that I want to hit for a moment is that we don't want to forget want to forget the what's in it for me. That person that shows up in those moments, we're working through conflict and we think that we've reached that place where it's healthy for most of the team, but there's that person. It's all about, what's in it for me, right? And maybe it's that temporary resolution that comes through and someone agrees because they want to avoid or please the supervisor. We want to make sure that we're reminding the team about why resolution is so important, not only to us but to the team as a whole, and being mindful of, we can't walk into conflict resolution with that mindset. What's in it for me, right? Maybe you're that have that team member that walks into those moments and is always thinking about what's in it for me, right? And that really leads me to the next point that I kind of already hinted at. That right person, wrong bus. Just like the raccoon here. I love the conflict we have here. In fact, I think it is excellent, right? Wrong. We don't want to allow that type of negativity or conflict to continue on our team. So maybe they have the right skills. Maybe they're good at what they do, but their attitude, their way of approaching conflict is not healthy for the team. And we have everyone else on board except for this one person. Maybe they're that person that shows up to work and you ask them what they ate for breakfast and they didn't answer Wheaties. Instead they answered, I ate a big old bowl of conflict. They're that person that just looks for it, breathes it, lives it, loves it. What we have to do with those types of people, and we're going to talk more about this a lot more in depth next week. So join us for that when we walk through, that toxic employee and what to do with them. But just very quickly, what we do need to do with that individual is coach them. We've got to be very factual, concise, and consistent with them. We want to make sure that we're to the point with them and be very honest and upfront about how their behaviors are impacting the rest of the team, because they're just it's almost kind of like conflict for conflict's sake. We want to keep them accountable, right? Now, what we want to be mindful of and be careful of is that we don't hold them to a different standard or expectation than the rest of the team. Typically, as a leader or manager, what can happen is those people that are they're just that toxic employee. It's just really tough to deal with them. You may have that individual, as I mentioned, that those two words, toxic employee. You had a picture of them in your mind. You avoid them. You maybe they come walking down the hall and your door gets shut, right? But what we want to be mindful of is that we keep them to the same standards or expectations. That we don't push them to a place where we're constantly on them at a higher level or higher standard or higher expectation. But we do want to keep them accountable to the same standards and expectations of the rest of the team. And then really with that type of person, we have to be willing to make a hard choice sometimes. If we can't coach them up, it's time to coach them out. And as hard as that is and unfun as that is, it's definitely something that on some of our teams has to happen, because if it doesn't, we allow that negativity to continue on our team, and then we can't work through conflict resolution, which causes just disruption, many different things that can hinder where we head as a team. So just a couple quick thoughts for you as we come to a close today, and just the importance factor of conflict resolution within our teams and what we want to think about. And we definitely want to make sure that we're picking our battles. As a leader, we need to know what hill we're going to die on, right? Okay, so the paper changed, and we now went with 96 point or 22 pound or whatever it is. I'm not a printer, so I have no idea about paperweight, but maybe the paperweight changed. Do you want to die on that hill because someone has an issue with it, or just change it and be fine with it? But maybe it's that how we're going to approach a situation to grow our business. And someone has an issue with that. We want to make sure that we're picking those battles and choosing the right ones. Don't die on the wrong hill. And then we want to avoid conflict for conflict's sake. Sometimes there's employees on our team that just want to be a part of conflict for conflict's sake. Maybe they're just not in a good place as an individual, and we just have to be very mindful of that and really avoid that conflict for conflict's sake. And here's the thing about it, that if enough is at stake, people will do what's necessary to resolve the issue. So sometimes we as a leader have to paint that picture for them, that there's a lot at stake, and if we don't push through this issue and find a resolution and resolve this with each other, there's a lot that we could lose as a team. So we need to be mindful of that with one another. And just to kind of close with this quote for you, this is from Robert Townsend, and it says, a good manager doesn't try to eliminate conflict. He tries to keep it from wasting the energies of his people. If you're the boss and your people fight you openly when they think that you're wrong, that's healthy. So I just want to encourage you, as you think through how to resolve conflict and work through conflict resolution as a team, as a leader, as a manager, do your best to set up an environment where people can disagree with the norm in a healthy way, because it'll only bring growth. And setting it up in a way where people can walk through those situations so that resolutions can be found and that growth can take place. So what I want to do, we have a few moments left here, about 5-6 minutes or so. What I want to do is just take any questions you may have in regards to conflict resolution within your team. So feel free to just type those in at the bottom in the Let me pull that up real quick here. You can type that in to the comment box, the chat box at the bottom. So feel free to just type those in there. Um, and what I want to remind you of is that there are some links, some great things for you listed there on your screen. We'll go over those in just a moment. But one question I'm typically asked is, when it comes to conflict resolution in a team, how much is too much? And that question is, I think, different for every team. You have to know where you're at as a team and walk through that situation. But define that boundary for you. How much is too much? And once you know that breaking point, uh, you're approaching that breaking point, um, set up that meeting, set up that time, come at it, and make sure you're working through it. The better you can do working through conflict resolution in a team, the more you'll grow, the more productive you'll be, and you'll really soar as a team. So what I would to encourage you to do is there's some helpful links for you there as we end our time together. You can check out our recorded webinars from this series on our YouTube channel. Some great links there for you. Don't forget, next week is toxic employees when conflict can't be resolved. That's actually going to be on Wednesday. I know we typically do Thursday, but it's going to be on a Wednesday. You can also download the presentation if you would like for your team to walk through that with them. And if you have any other questions, would love to hear them from you. Feel free to shoot me an email or our team an email. But appreciate you so much for being with us today. I hope that you have a great day and a wonderful time working through conflict. And I know that sounds like a terrible statement, right? But remember, it's healthy for your team. So embrace it, uh, run at it, not around it, and enjoy it because it really will make your team better the way that you walk through it. So thanks again. Hope you all have an incredible day.